The 7 best questions to ask during employee one-on-one meetings. Really? How would I know that they are the best ones? Well, here's what I did. I've talked to more than 100 managers in the last months and asked them, why are you even doing one-on-one meetings? So in this video, I will explain the 7 reasons I found out, and I will explain the 7 corresponding pretty smart questions to ask during your employee one-on-one meeting. So let's jump right into it. One of the first patterns that I recognized in the interviews that I did was that managers want strong relationship building with their employees. So that's one of the first things that you can foster by, for example, asking this as your first question in the one-on-one meeting. How was your last weekend? How was your last vacation? How is your kid doing? So it's specifically about the private matters here, because the private things are those that actually build trust with your employee. And here the law of reciprocity applies, which for one-on-one meetings means the following. If you want your team member to open up, you have to go first. You have to share your thoughts, challenges, or even small personal stories from your family life, because when you show vulnerability and that you are a normal human, normal person, you signal trust, and that encourages them to do the same. Does it make sense? You actually just learned the simple magic behind relationship building. After this question here, after relationship building, the next goal is to gauge employee satisfaction, to spot disengagement, to prevent employee churn in the end, very early on. And you can do this, of course, by simply asking, how are you doing? How satisfied are you? But I would recommend, given that this is such an obvious thing, to do this more systematic, I would recommend to use a survey for doing this. So in this case, looking at the last weeks, I'm satisfied with my job. And then the employee can give a reply on a scale from disagree completely to agree completely. For example, this person could say, I'm rather disagree for whatever reasons. And then you can also take notes. Why is that? Plus, over time, and that's the awesome thing about this, you can see the history of the replies. And so it's more systematic here. If you have asked this multiple times, then you have this trend over the last months, plus some context on why people gave this reply. And this is one of the features, by the way, of the Echometer one-on-one meeting software, which I co-developed, so I'm definitely biased, but I would also definitely recommend to check it out. Let's get to the next goal that you have with your one-on-one meeting, which is basically to collect data for your performance review, you could say, or in other words, you want to learn together with the employee on what they worked on, what were successes and what were failures. So the question that you can ask here, a simple one would be, when did you feel most effective or in flow lately? I recommend to not directly ask for successes, because sometimes employees wouldn't call it a success. But what they definitely can say is where they felt comfortable, where they felt energetic, or where they felt like they were in a flow. I like this question because it helps also to ask the follow-up question, what were the conditions that enabled this flow? Okay, let's get to the next question, which is basically what I just said. You want to unblock performance and you want to surface tensions very early on. So your question could be, where are you spending energy that feels wasted? Once again, it's easier to reply to such a question compared to where did you fail recently? And asking for things that are wasted, this also opens up for you the opportunity to potentially help them. Now, the next question is actually very obvious, and I won't even introduce it with a specific goal, because it is simply, what should we circle back on from our last conversation? You definitely want to create transparency about all the tasks that you're putting down. So it could look like this, that you're simply organizing it with a simple task here. And of course, it might make sense to have a dedicated space to monitor the tasks that are open, or potentially also the things that you already put down. Now, the next thing that you want to do, of course, in your one-on-one meeting is to fuel growth. You want to coach them personally and in their career development. So the next question that you can ask during your one-on-one meeting is basically, what are 2 things that you wish to happen in the next month? And this is a variation of one of our conversation starter templates. So we have quite a few of templates here, and one of them is the future perspective that introduces a few questions that generally ask to go on a longer time frame. So it recommends in this case to ask 1 or 2 years. But I like these questions that are moving towards the future, because it helps the employee to ignore everything that potentially didn't go well in the past, but just helps to focus on the future. Okay, the next goal of your one-on-one meeting is that you show appreciation. Simply by investing the time, you obviously show that you appreciate the employee. So we don't have a dedicated question for this one. The next goal is something that is often forgotten, and that is actually from the book Built to Last. The book is saying that the really successful companies, they have one thing in common. They have a big vision that they are working towards. And that's something that you can also make part of your one-on-one meeting. So the next goal is to reinforce the vision, to keep it present, top of mind for the employee. So something that you can introduce in your one-on-one meeting as, you could say, health check, is this little sentence here, this phrase, I know exactly what my value contribution to our vision is. And this can trigger really interesting discussions. So let's say the employee is saying, well, yes, agree somewhat. And then once again, you can check the history, and then I can once again see the context, which is very, very interesting, because when I asked this in January for the first time, this employee replied that he didn't even know what the vision is, which is a very valuable insight here. Now, what if you're having good one-on-one conversations, but the performance in your team is still really bad? I guess in that case, you're experiencing what we call the performance leak. Here on the left, you can see some parts of the performance leak map that we've developed. And it is all about optimizing your team as a system, and it might help you understand what to do to push team performance to a 10 out of 10 in a healthy and sustainable way. Well, if you want to learn how to plug the performance leak in your team, check out our channel and obviously subscribe. See you there.